Everyone thinks my husband was a great man, but after years of mistreatment, I'm just relieved he's gone for good. My husband passed away 3 months ago, and honestly, I felt relieved when it happened. He had been abusing me for years financially, mentally, and even physically. When I got pregnant, he convinced me to quit my job, saying he would take care of everything. But after that, I couldn't buy anything without asking for his permission, not even a simple cream. Even when I had a little money of my own, I still had to ask if I could spend it. What was mine became his, and what was his stayed his. I stayed with him for a long time because, in the beginning, I still loved him, and I had nowhere else to go. My self-esteem was so low that I let him walk all over me. By the time I stopped loving him, he had already had his first affair. He made me believe it was my fault, saying it was because I didn't want to have sex after giving birth, which had left me physically torn and needing stitches. Looking back, I know now that I was never the problem, but it took me a long time to realize that. I had already started planning my escape, saving whatever little money I could from working at home. My husband wouldn't let me get a job outside because of his jealousy, so I sold things from home, hoping to eventually pay for a lawyer. He was having yet another affair, this time with a friend of his. Honestly, I didn't care anymore. In fact, I was relieved because it kept him busy and away from me. I wanted him as far from me as possible. I knew what was going on between him and that man, and he knew I knew too. I could have raised hell, but I didn't. Instead, I stayed quiet, planning my way out while they snuck around. The only thing I felt toward my husband was disgust. But then, my husband died in a way I never saw coming. Now he's being treated like a martyr. It's like when someone dies, all their sins just disappear, because even my own family, who knew about his affair and how he manipulated me, are now talking about what a good man he was. They say we shouldn't speak ill of the dead, but they've forgotten all the pain he caused me. Everyone around me keeps talking about how beautiful our relationship was. His family goes on about what a great man he was, always saying he gave everything to me and our child. Even his affair partner hugged me at the funeral, saying that my husband loved me. His friends shared stories about what an amazing person he was, how he's now an angel in heaven. And here I am, forced to pretend to be heartbroken. The day he died, I cried, but it wasn't out of sadness. I cried out of sheer relief. I felt free for the first time in years. It would have taken me forever to save enough money to hire a lawyer without him finding out. I was secretly keeping money from my little store, but he would have noticed eventually. He'd already made it clear that if I ever tried to leave, he'd make my life a living hell. He told me that every time I stood up for myself. But now, with him gone, I don't have to fear that anymore. I have the house, I have everything, I have the monthly money for being a widow, I have my children totally with me. I've started seeing a psychologist, and while everyone thinks it's to help me cope with grief, that's not the case at all. It's to help me heal from the abuse I went through with him. It was really tough pretending to be sad at the funeral, but I did it for my child. I did it because now, finally, everything is over and I'm free. If I had caused a scene, my ex-mother-in-law would have made sure I didn't get anything. They were just like him. But now, in their eyes, I'm the grieving widow who needs help, the clueless one who didn't know what was going on. And honestly, that's working in my favor. It's allowing me to keep my freedom and what I rightfully deserve. Edit. We're not from an Islamic country, and here, same-sex couples can live and marry freely. He just cheated on me with a man, the same way he did with a woman. I guess he was bisexual. It's been several weeks since I last posted, and I didn't expect my post to end up in other places. Honestly, I had completely forgotten I even shared it here until a few days ago, when my ex-husband's lover and so-called friend showed up at my house. I've started calling my late husband ex-husband, because I don't want to be tied to the idea that he's still my husband, even in death. Death did me the favor of separating us. He showed up, saying he had found my post. I didn't expect him to find it, and it scared me a little, but at this point, there's nothing I can do if someone shared it elsewhere without asking me first. One of my kids let him in because I hadn't heard the doorbell. So, to avoid making a scene in front of my children, I allowed him inside. I was curious to hear what he had to say. Once we were alone, he admitted that he knew I was aware of the affair with my husband, all because of the post. He claimed he saw it on TikTok, although I never posted anything there. That's why I believe someone else uploaded it. He told me that, while my husband may not have been the best husband, he was a great friend to everyone and a hardworking man. He went on about how even his family misses him too much, and that despite his mistakes, I should let go of the past and stop digging into it. He kept saying that we'd all be better off if I just moved on. He insisted so much that I started feeling intimidated by him, to the point where he reminded me of my husband. For the first time, I had that same fear I used to have with my ex, and I've never felt that way around another man before. I usually feel comfortable talking to people, but this situation made me feel like I was on the verge of a panic attack because of his attitude. He's clearly afraid I'll spill everything. I know he's gay, and maybe he's in a relationship now, which is probably why he doesn't want anyone to know about the affair. For years, I was a submissive woman. My ex turned me into someone I never was before, someone who always kept her head down. But when he died, I felt so happy and free. I cried with relief for days. When this man walked into my house, telling me what I should do, it felt like seeing my ex-husband all over again. He was giving me orders about how to behave, what to say, just like my ex used to do. This man knew very well that I was in an abusive relationship. He knew how my ex treated me, and he still chose to sleep with him anyway. He's the same man my husband made me cook for and then had sex with, like I was just some maid in the background. And here he was, in my home, telling me my ex was a good person and that I should just shut up. I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't just want to slap him. I was so angry, I ended up punching him right in the face. Honestly, it felt like I was hitting my husband too. And I don't regret it, it actually felt good. I yelled at him to get out of my house or I'd tell everyone about what really happened. He left and hasn't said a word since. Originally, my plan was to keep quiet and move on. But it's one thing for me to choose that, and a whole other thing for someone else to come in and try to control me like I'm some kind of puppet. Maybe punching him wasn't the best reaction, but I'm so tired of being told to stay silent. I never stood up to my husband, but that day, it felt like I finally did. I haven't told anyone the whole story yet, and I don't plan to unless he pushes me. Then, I won't hesitate to make a TikTok or post on Facebook and tell the world everything. With the situation around the house, I'm not sure anyone can actually afford what it's worth given the current economic crisis. For now, though, I'm focused on getting a better job in the future so I can rent a different place and then rent this house out. That could be a good way to bring in some extra money. Another goal of mine is to eventually buy a small piece of land, no matter how far away, something that's truly mine and for my kids. As for my children, they don't miss their father too much, and I understand why. It took me a while, but I finally managed to get them into child therapy, and they've been doing well in their sessions. I also see a psychologist myself. I think one of the best things I've done is start making excuses to see my ex-Mill and even my own family less often. I've been slowly distancing myself, using work or saying we're not home as reasons. I still have to let my ex-Mill come by occasionally, but even then, I think my kids are happier now that my mood has improved. I doubt many people are really interested in all this, but thank you for the messages I've received. A lot of people don't understand that cultures and laws vary, and where I live, buying a house or moving across the country in a month is just impossible for many of us.